Traditionally, tonometers have been classified as applanation and indentation types. In applanation, force required to flatten a small standard area of cornea is measured, while indentation refers to the amount of deformation of the globe in response to a standard weight applied to the cornea. This video is limited to the Goldmann applanation type. It is based on the Imbert-Fick law. Goldmann applanation determines the force necessary to flatten an area of cornea 3.06 mm in diameter, referred to as constant area applanation. The intraocular pressure in millimeter of mercury equals the flattening force in grams multiplied by 10. The mathematical calculation of a Goldmann applanation is based on presumed average corneal thickness of 520 microns. It consists of a biprism attached to a feeler arm over a housing unit with a calibration dial or a tension knob and a holder for the calibration rod. The tonotip housing the biprism has markings from 0 to 180 degrees, along with a red and a white line, the significance of which will be discussed subsequently. The tension knob has markings from 1 to 7, with each dividing mark standing for an increment by a factor of 2. The final intraocular pressure is obtained by multiplying by a factor of 10. So one can measure from 2 to 78 mm of mercury. It is important to ensure that the patient is comfortably seated and with the chin touching the chin rest below and the forehead against the forehead rest above. The lateral canthus should be aligned with the marking on the slit lamp handle as shown. The tonotip is cleaned with a sterilizing solution such as 70% isopropyl alcohol and allowed to dry. Meanwhile, the patient's cornea is anesthetized with a topical preparation such as proparacaine. The tear film is stained with fluorescein impregnated paper strips in the lower cul-de-sac. Before starting, one has to ensure that the zero mark of the prism is set at the white line on the prism holder. In case of astigmatism greater than 3 diopters, the Myers are more elliptical and hence the prism should be rotated about 45 degrees from the long axis of the ellipse. That is, the prism mark corresponding to the meridian of least corneal curvature should align with the red line on the prism holder. The tension knob is set at 1 and setting at 0 can cause the prism head to vibrate when it touches the eye. As a rule, it is more accurate to measure IOP by increasing rather than decreasing the applanating force. Once this is done, the angle between the illumination and the microscope is set to approximately 60 degrees. Ensure that the palpebral fissure is wide open as the tonotip gently touches the cornea without touching the lashes or the lid margin, which could stimulate blinking. In some patients, one would have to support the thumb against the orbital rim. The split semicircular Myers are viewed monocularly and one should turn the tension knob till the inner ends of the two semicircular rings are just touching each other. The same is repeated for the other eye with a change of illumination to the other side. This is how the correct Myers would look like, approximately 0.25 to 0.3 mm in thickness or about 1/10 the diameter of the flattened area. This is a very thin Meyer which leads to underestimation of the intraocular pressure. This is a very thick Meyer leading to overestimation of IOP. Goldmann applanation should be calibrated at least once a month. A calibration bar is available for this purpose. There are 5 line markings engraved on this bar. The middle marking represents 0, which is depicted in red, with 2 on either side of 0, seen as yellow, and 6 towards the edges, seen in blue. Line up the adjustable holder with the lines representing either 2 or the 6 mark on the weight, with the longer end of the bar facing the examiner. Calibration is done at dial positions 0, 2, and 6, which correspond to 0, 20, and 60 mm of mercury respectively. At dial position 0, the feeler arm should be in free movement. If the dial is turned backwards a small distance, the arm should fall towards the examiner. If the dial is turned forwards a small way, the arm should fall towards the patient. If the arm does not respond in the above way, the tonometer is inaccurate at the corresponding dial position. The same applies to positions 2 and 6 as well. If the tonometer is inaccurate at any of these dial positions, it should be returned to the manufacturer for recalibration. Before use in each patient, the toner tip needs to be wiped with 70% isopropyl alcohol. However, at the end of the day, one needs to disinfect by dipping the toner tip in a solution of diluted sodium hypochlorite solution prepared by adding 5 ml of sodium hypochlorite to 45 ml of distilled water. It is allowed to soak for 3 to 5 minutes before wiping it dry. And now we move on to gonioscopy. It is not possible to view the anterior chamber of a normal eye directly, owing to the total internal reflection of light from the junction of the iris and cornea after striking the tear-air interface at a shallow angle. If light from the interior of the eye strikes the cornea at an angle steeper than 46 degrees, which is referred to as the critical angle, the light will exit the eye and the trabecular meshwork will be visible. This is made possible by the use of contact lenses, which can either be direct or indirect gonio lenses. The direct gonio lenses such as Swan, Jacob and Kopy are mainly used for surgical procedures and in infants. However, it is not within the purview of this presentation. The lenses used in indirect gonioscopy use mirrors to overcome the total internal reflection. The mirror redirects the light from the angle so that it exits the eye perpendicularly to the lens air interface. There can be 3 or single or even 4 mirrors. 4 mirrors as shown here with the mirrors angulated at 64 degrees. It can be without a handle or with a handle as shown here, or even with a detachable handle as shown here. This is how a normal angle would look like. Starting from cornea to iris, it consists of a lightly pigmented Schwalbe's line, which marks the termination of Descemet's, followed by the trabecular meshwork, which is divided into a non-pigmented anterior and a pigmented posterior part. Then comes the white line, which represents the scleral spur. Following this is a grey or a brown ciliary body band between the scleral spur and the iris root. It is performed in a dark room or dim illumination with patient positioning similar to that shown previously for tonometry. The illumination is made coaxial and the slit size is reduced to 5 so that the slit beam does not cross the pupillary margin, which could lead to pupil constriction and pseudo-opening of the angles. It is advisable for the beginners to use high magnification in order to better appreciate the angle structures. Following corneal anesthesia, the gonio lens slowly advances towards the eye, with the patient looking forward and gently placed on the cornea, making sure no inadvertent pressure is applied on the cornea, which is common in beginners. The slit beam is then moved along all quadrants for a 360-degree assessment of the normal anatomy. So this is how the angle would look like. After use in every patient, the gonio lens is washed thoroughly under running water with a foaming antiseptic solution.